Hey everyone, in this video I'll be showing you an OP build for Genessa Immortal Shell 2. I'll be showing you a version with the stray doubles here, as well as a faithful doubles version, because there's two different ways you can play Genessa depending on how you want to do it, and the nice thing about this is you can always change it out whenever you go to a beacon. So the best part about stray Genessa is she has insanely high DPS creating these clones here, and with faithful Genessa she's good for defensive play. So depending on the boss that you go against, you can swap these out on the fly, because some setups are going to actually benefit the stray doubles, which I'll start with, and then I'll talk about the faithful doubles. Now, some of the most impactful skills here are grabbing communion, but most importantly, the alteration. This gets rid of Sister Genessa here and makes it so you're always in your stray form, and you can increase the time that they'll be out. The thing that you want to use this for is just a crazy amount of DPS you can get from the strays, because you can pair this with Mirage. So you will have to take this to tier 4 to give it actual tankiness, because the stray doubles will protect Genessa from a single fatal blow. You can summon an additional one, which gives you a crazy boost to your DPS. And we can also create our clone will copy or block 2 attacks for us. Now, it is not 2 attacks per clone, it's only 2 attacks in general, but this is really nice when you combine it with things like communion here, which are going to make the stray doubles deal increased melee damage 200%, as well as 200% range damage. So they come out and they lay the pain. They're extremely powerful. So these 4 here are going to be your most important skills. Is obviously something a little bit later on in the game, but the catalyst here is great because this makes it so that your stray doubles cost less to summon, so you can summon in 3 of them at a time, and it increases their duration. So if you're starting off early game, catalyst, and then as soon as you're able to unlock the alteration and communion, you're going to put points into these and continue along until you get the causality and mirage. This is the most important one here, giving you that survivability. One thing I want to note, it's not perfect. In night mode, which is what I'm playing in currently, sometimes the enemies just attack straight through you and take you out regardless. So if you're going against a boss and this is happening, I found that closing down the game entirely and opening it back up sometimes does fix it. Otherwise, the faithful doubles, which I'll touch on in a moment, would be a good choice. And the equipment actually stays the same between these 2 builds. The only thing would be you'd change out your ranged weapon. Some people like to, I mean, you can get a lot more damage from the shotgun, for example, but I like the Forgotten Crossbow for a bit longer range combat. It just really depends on your own personal preference. You can use like some of these other here, but this is how we would spec if we wanted to use the faithful doubles. The most important skill here is distraction. These are going to draw the aggro of the enemies. I gotta admit, the faithful doubles have terrible tracking. However, you will get comfortable with playing this at finding the perfect range for you to summon these in. To give it a chance at hitting the enemy, I would recommend tossing on the affinity here, which gives them an additional attack. This can help out a little bit, but the main reason we want to have the faithful doubles is to bait enemies into attacking them. The 3rd tier of this ability makes that it gets 15 stasis build up on the enemy when they attack one of these doubles. Stasis makes the enemies move a lot slower, which is actually really insane, and more stacks means they move slower, so you can actually summon out a lot of these quickly. Now, there are a few other ways that we can go about building with this, but I found that going with the distraction here is extremely useful. Impetus is also nice because they're going to use our weapon ability. With the Shrike Stone, they can do some pretty crazy stagger damage, so that can be really nice. You can summon them in, and they can use your weapon action, which may have you have more of these that you can summon than your weapon ability, so if you get lucky, you can just destroy a boss with that. But you want to take this for the increased damage and tracking, and also reduce the resolve cost, and make it so that they give you resolve back. They are not likely to do that, so you can avoid that 2nd, 3rd tier altogether, and put things like into here to get the more weapon ability, but I like to go with that there. Put on the instigation here. This gives warp, which makes them attack faster, but the other thing is it gives phantom stacks, which is going to build up stagger damage, which is kind of nice. So this will give them another benefit of applying stasis and phantom. And then I also like to put 1 point in intangible here, which is going to make it so that you can summon in an additional 2 when you lose your shell. So whenever you go into the stray form, you do get a couple faithful doubles that will eat up some attacks for you and typically will trigger the stasis from distraction. Now I'm at level 50, I beat the game here, but you can do really good early on in the game, because as soon as you get the, as soon as you're getting this here to decrease the cost of it, increase the tracking so they get another attack, and then put all your points in distraction, this would be a perfect mid game because it's going to draw the aggro away from bosses. Now, weapons do come down to personal preference. However, the Axatana has a really great dodge cancel. The only one that I wouldn't really recommend is Great Martyr's Blade. This locks you into the animations, and it is quite brutal. Axatana, Axe and Dagger with Blood Curse is really good. Iconoclast, if you do enjoy that weapon. I'm a big fan of the Black Needle. These would be like my top 4 weapons, but Axatana just is the best in my opinion with electric damage, fast attacks, and you do get 2 different forms of it, but Black Needle would probably come second, Axe and Dagger third, Iconoclast fourth. Personal preference though, the Veteran's Battle Axe is also another great weapon. As for a ranged one, as mentioned, Forgotten Crossbow I typically like to use if I'm using the different faithful doubles, because with this you can send out your faithful doubles and shoot from range. But if you're going to use the stray, the nail shot just does so much crazy damage at close range. I'm also a fan of the Trebuchet axe here. It does a lot of damage, but you do have to charge it up. This is another one that comes down to preference. I think Forgotten Crossbow and nail shot are the two best in this situation. And again, seal is another one that is personal preference, but I find untarnished seal, unless you're really good with Vatra Shield, which gives you the stone ability, this one is really good for a lot of different bosses in this game, but it will depend on the boss and preference as well. But untarnished is what I use. Vatra is probably the true best. Now Tarstones is where this comes together. I would recommend grabbing the Headstone as well as the Marksman Stone, Auspicious Stone, and the Berserker Stone. I do have a guide on where to get these here. The reason that we want this is 50% more melee critical hit damage is huge. Also, the Auspicious Stone will give us an increased critical hit chance, so that just turns into raw DPS. Marksman Stone gives our range attacks a boost to the crit chance, and the Berserker Stone, which is crazy, the lower our health, the higher our damage. You want to have this at tier 3. I don't currently have it. It was a little bug for me when I played through the game. Very powerful though. I would recommend going with these 4. You could also toss in ranged attacks if you're going with the version that's going to be focused on using the strays, because they get the additional attacks from range. Now for our combat Tarstones, duality is just so good. This is used on the Axe and Dagger or on the Axe Katana here. Double the attacks, double the status buildup. It is very powerful. Now you can go with something like, if you're using in the earlier sections of the game, you can go and use the Wounding Strike here, which is going to make your range attacks do a little bit more. But I found Duality Stone just makes it even better once you unlock this. Thief Stone is nice for the warp, increasing your attack speed. I do enjoy that as well. I like to have the Shattering Stone here if I'm using the crossbow, because it's going to make the bolt split, and you can actually do some pretty respectable damage because it's going to break them off, and you got multiple projectiles. I did have fun with the Corroded Stone, which will do damage over time on your shots, and sometimes can stagger bosses with that. And the Shuddering Stone making the impacts is also quite good, because you can do some pushback when you're doing general mobbing, but for bossing, Splitting Stone is best. Infusions. Now, if you're using the Axe Katana, Voltaic Crown gives you a lightning, which is damage over time. Huge. I'm also a fan of the Torpor Stone, which will give you the stasis, which will slow the enemies down. So if you're not using the faithful doubles that apply this really well, you can go with this to slow enemies, but Voltaic Crown is higher DPS. If you really want to use the St. Martyr's Blade, you can use the Warden Stone here, but Blood Curse from the Arbiter's Prize is the very first one you get from being the boss at the very first beacon. This gives Blood Curse, which is extremely powerful. This is great for the Axe and Dagger play or setup, or if you want to use the Iconoclast, it is a solid option too. I just found Lightning to be great. Now I have the Ember Seed or Hagstone on your ranged weapon. Really depends what ranged weapon you want to use. I use a crossbow with the burn for a bit of extra damage over time. However, the Vile Tongue Hedron here, which will give Blood Curse again, is really good. So you can go with the shotgun or the Cursed Child on this, but the shotgun is just a little bit better. So you can go full Blood Curse and give some pretty crazy damage from that. Our weapon abilities, I highly recommend the Shrike Stone. This is so crazy good. It's usable on the Axe Katana or the Iconoclast. This gives you so many iframes. It is 100% worth using because of that. I also do like the Hexapod Core. This will give you warp stack, so you do end up attacking faster after you use this. So this can be nice for a crazy DPS, as warp stacks will make you use your attacks faster. So this can mean that if you're using strays, for example, you can attack really fast. This is really powerful. I also like for the ranged attack to use the Fusillade Stone here. This can work. It's personal preference when it comes to these. We're typically not going to burn through our resolve too much with these, and save it for summoning in our strays or doing a Shrike Stone if you need that invincibility. Now, there is one thing I do want to know. The Grisha Remnant will mess with the ability to summon in the strays. I found that that's just completely made them useless, so be careful with using the Grisha Remnant. It does come with some issues. I like the Sleephead Totem, I guess, as the passive, which will reduce the enemy's health by a percentage. Not crazy good, but all the other ones are mostly just for mitigating certain damage types, which you can swap to if you're going to a certain area. But the active, we always want to have Common Moonshine, because this will give us Resolve back. And Resolve's great because that allows you to be able to use your abilities more quickly. So, putting this all together, we're using the Faithful Doubles here now. The other one's straightforward. Call in your Stray and let it do its thing. The Faithful Doubles, you have to be at a certain range here. You see, they just got hit with that, so they all now have the stasis, making them move a lot slower. So that's great because, wow, our Stray ended up doing the jumping attack. He used the Shrike Stone, so that was really nice. You typically want to call these in to try and bait the enemy into attacking them and slow them down like that. So that's why I said this one is a much more defensive focused shell, because you can summon in this here, they'll get attacked and it'll slow the enemies down. So you see here, he's now slowed. I backed up into a bad position there, but you want to pull these out and you can copy a couple of them at a time, and then you can go in with using some of your abilities here while they're all distracted and then blast away with your very heavy to hit attack. But yeah, the Faithful Doubles are mostly here for the aggro pulling because it's really good at doing that. And you'll see the enemies will go and get baited by them really quickly. The Faithful Double actually just took out those two enemies there. We're in night mode, so they do have a little bit more annoyingness to them, but you do want to go in and attack so you do get your Faithful Doubles back. So you're just going to be basically popping them out, wait till they get the aggro drawn, and if they're slowing an enemy, all that much better. So then we can go ahead with another one and another one here. It's nice to summon out a couple at a time, and if you get knocked out of your shell, you will get another one there. But you can see that they're actually very good at, we got two of them using their weapon action there. That's a good thing. It's RNG, so sometimes you will get against a boss fight and have a huge advantage against it. I do anticipate they will release a patch that updates the tracking on these, so hopefully in the future we'll see the Faithful Doubles, but you're seeing the range that I'm summoning them in at. You typically want to do it a little bit away from them, but don't get too close or too far away. I found roughly around this, I would say like 10 to 15 meters range is going to be the most ideal for have a track, because they run forward first before they do their attacks. And you see here, large enemies like this actually get really cheesed by it because they are going to constantly be attacking. He does that annoying attack there where he like puffs out, but you can use your Faithful Doubles as you saw there to stop him, which is really useful. So they have multiple purposes. Summon them in often and you're going to have a good time with them. They're great against bosses too, because they'll end up applying stasis and draw the aggro so you can get hits in. And as I mentioned, it is really good against bosses because it'll sometimes draw their aggro entirely, or sometimes just do that where it ends up giving them enough stagger to just knock them down. And if you're using the Faithful Doubles, you can use the Grisha here because it's not going to impact the Strays too much if you're not focused on using them. And yeah, you can see it there. That does have a crazy amount of knockdown, so highly recommend that. But they're so good for just drawing aggro, and that's really where they shine in boss fights. If you're not going to use the Stray approach, or if the Strays are causing it to have some issues for you, yeah, this is the way to go. And if you aren't currently playing Genessa, she has a lot of unique dialogue in the game, so she is worth playing for that regard. You can do some pretty cool stuff as her. She's a fun character to play with the ability to have two distinct different builds. It is super powerful and strong, and also really fun. So I highly recommend playing Genessa here. And if you have any questions, feel free to hit them in the comments below. Subscribe if this video is useful, and we'll catch you guys all in the next one.